A serious accident damaged the engine, causing the plane to lose control in midair. The survivor was the one sitting at the back of the plane. The plane decided to land on the ocean. Seawater gradually filled up the empty compartments in the plane. Some lucky survivors found themselves in a desperate situation. The rescue team quickly approached the plane, but they were surrounded by a pack of extremely hungry sharks. The sharks were ready to attack the rescuers at any moment, facing rising water, a shortage of oxygen tanks, and the hungry sharks. How could they escape from this? Stay with me to find out. On the occasion of Ava's dad running for governor of Long Island, USA, she invited her boyfriend Jed and her best friend Kyle to enjoy a trip around the world. To ensure his daughter's safety, the governor sent their curly-haired butler to protect her and take care of Ava. This made Jed visibly annoyed, since it meant he wouldn't have privacy with his girlfriend. No sneaky cuddling for him. After some time in the waiting lounge, the plane finally took off. To make his daughter comfortable, the governor booked first-class seats for Ava and her two friends. Next to them was little Rosa and her grandparents. They also chose first class for their precious granddaughter. Rosa was super excited about the trip, but soon after takeoff, everyone noticed a flock of birds colliding with the engine's propeller. The cabin started shaking quite a bit. The flight attendant, with a calm face, reassured everyone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. This is completely normal. I see this every day. Nothing serious at all." But the shaking only got worse, making it hard for anyone to stay calm. And then, the propeller unexpectedly caught fire, sending a piece of metal flying into the plane's fuselage. Panic erupted among the passengers. "It's okay, just a minor hiccup." But before the words even settled, the engine exploded, ripping a big hole in cabin B. The pressure difference caused many passengers to be sucked out of the plane, even those who had fastened their seatbelts. With such terrifying winds, how could anyone possibly hold on? The horrifying scene left everyone screaming in terror. Only a few passengers sitting farther away were lucky enough not to be sucked out. But by now, the engine was heavily damaged, causing the plane to lose all control and plunge downward. Luckily, the ocean below softened the impact. The plane remained intact and didn't explode. However, its massive weight meant it was slowly sinking to the seabed. Ava's group was fortunately unharmed. Little Rosa and her grandparents were submerged in water, but managed to resurface in time. Rosa's grandmother, however, was exhausted and in critical condition. Fortunately, the flight attendant knew CPR. After some resuscitation efforts, the grandmother was finally pulled back from the brink of death. Unfortunately, Rosa's grandfather wasn't as lucky. Now, only 7 survivors remained. Everyone's faces were filled with worry and panic. At this point, the butler spoke up. "You have 2 choices. Sit here crying and waiting for death, or stay calm and work together to find a way out." Water was flooding the first-class cabin, and oxygen was depleting fast. "Let's check if we have any spare oxygen tanks left." The flight attendant, still visibly shaken, hurriedly opened the compartments to check. There was only 1 tank left. "Well, we'll just have to make do with this." The butler decided to dive forward to assess the situation. The grandmother spoke up. "If possible, please bring me something of my husband's as a keepsake." The butler replied, "I'll do my best." He quickly dove beneath the water and swam towards the front rows. Some passengers, who had fastened their seatbelts too tightly, were unable to escape and drowned. The butler took a hat from the grandfather's hand and gathered some other useful items. But as he glanced at the hole near the fuselage, a shark suddenly appeared. It darted towards him like lightning to attack. The plane shook slightly, worrying those who were waiting anxiously. Eva let out a sigh of relief when she saw the butler return. However, he had suffered a severe wound to his abdomen during the attack. The butler handed the hat to the grandmother, but before he could say his final words to Eva, the shark dragged him back underwater. And well, you can probably guess how it ends. Even though he wasn't family, the butler had cared for Ava since she was little. The grief was clearly written on her face. Meanwhile, Ava's best friend Kyle had broken his arm during the earlier mid-air collision. With limited medical supplies, they could only tightly wrap his arm to prevent the injury from worsening. Everyone was on edge, when suddenly, a soda can hissed as it leaked gas. The strange noise only heightened the tension in the air. When news of the governor's daughter's plane crash broke, a rescue team immediately dispatched helicopters to search. But with such a vast ocean, pinpointing the crash site was incredibly difficult. To make matters worse, the plane occasionally shook slightly, as sharks outside rammed it, trying to get in. They were desperate to feed. Before anyone could process that, the plane suddenly began shaking more violently. It turned out the plane was perched on a rocky ledge, and it was slowly sliding down into a ravine. The jolt caused an oxygen tank to burst, making the atmosphere even more tense. At this point, Ava could no longer keep her composure. She quietly went to the restroom to cry, overwhelmed by the fear of death. After a while searching, the helicopter spotted pieces of the plane's wreckage, floating scattered across the sea. However, they couldn't pinpoint the exact location of the crash. They sent 2 rescuers to dive and search underwater. The ocean was vast, and the deeper they went, the dimmer the light became. Finding the plane was an enormous challenge, but luck was on their side. The submerged plane gradually came into view for the rescuers. They moved closer to the plane to begin the rescue mission. Inside the cabin, fear was evident on everyone's faces. The only exception was little Rosa, who kept smiling optimistically. Her positivity gave everyone the strength to hold on. Joy filled the air when they saw the rescuers outside the plane. Those inside shouted in excitement and relief. Wasn't this the light at the end of the dark tunnel? The rescuer signaled for calm, reassuring the group inside. But little did he know, the one in danger was actually himself. Just as he signaled, okay, a shark suddenly appeared, biting directly into the rescuer's body. He struggled desperately, and managed to keep one of his legs, but the rest of him was devoured by the shark. The horrifying sight struck fear into everyone. They all hoped. There were still rescuers outside searching for them. To be rescued, they needed to move outside. But during the move, Jed slipped and fell into the water. A shark immediately appeared, biting into his leg. Everyone tried to hold on and pull Jed up, but his leg was gone. Little Rosa shouldn't have had to witness this scene. Her grandmother quickly brought her inside. To help stop Jed's bleeding, they had to use a rope to tighten the wound. Jed tried to act like he was fine, but inside, the pain was unbearable. If they wanted to escape, they would need diving gear. Unfortunately, the gear was in the luggage compartment, with one person's arm broken, another's leg gone, and the last attendant too weak. There was no other choice. Eva had to take the flare, and dive down to retrieve the diving gear. Everyone anxiously waited above, but suddenly, the light below went out. Just as panic set in, Eva surfaced, holding the diving gear bag. After giving the gear to everyone, she turned to comfort Jed, encouraging him to stay strong. The others continued searching for any sign of rescuers outside, but Jed couldn't hold on any longer. Having lost too much blood, he passed away peacefully, losing the butler and now her boyfriend, threw Eva into despair. Before she could even breathe, a massive tremor hit. The plane split in two, with one half plunging into the abyss. The remaining half slowly followed. Water started flooding the first-class cabin. If they stayed and waited, death was certain. The only option was to risk diving out of the plane and swimming to the surface. Once everyone was ready with diving gear and set to go, the grandmother spoke up. "I'm old and don't have the strength to dive out of here. Please save my granddaughter." Without hesitation, Eva took Rosa and dove into the water. During the dive, she encountered a shark. She released the oxygen tank valve, scaring the shark away. It quickly swam off. The grandmother, knowing her limits, decided to stay behind and await her fate. Perhaps the most despairing moment is knowing death is near, but being powerless to change it. Meanwhile, the flight attendant couldn't find Kyle behind him, and decided to turn back to look. It turned out Kyle couldn't swim due to his broken arm. Before the attendant could pull him along, a shark appeared and delivered a fatal bite to Kyle. Ava and Rosa waited for the flight attendant outside to get oxygen. The three paused to replenish their air for the final push. They prepared to surface. When everything was ready, Ava pushed the flight attendant and Rosa out of the plane first. As it was her turn, a shark blocked her path. Ava held her breath and stayed perfectly still. Thankfully, the ocean predator ignored her. However, its tail accidentally knocked her oxygen mask away. Ava quickly swam away as fast as she could. Just when she thought she was safe, the plane suddenly plunged into the abyss. The momentum created a reverse suction, pulling Ava down. She grabbed onto a seat and climbed her way up, managing to escape the plane. But her oxygen levels were dangerously low. Ava kicked hard to reach the surface, as fast as she could, but her body stopped responding to her commands. Ava lost consciousness due to severe oxygen deprivation. Her face froze, her skin pale and lifeless. Her life jacket slowly lifted her body to the ocean's surface. It seemed the protagonist couldn't survive, but the director suddenly brought her back to life. In the end, Ava, Rosa, and the flight attendant were rescued just in time by a helicopter. Perhaps after this ordeal, they'll never set foot on a plane again. And with that, the movie ends. What are your thoughts about this movie? Do you fear this might happen every time you fly? If you were in this situation, what would you do? If you enjoyed it, please give me a like and subscribe. It's a huge motivation for me. Goodbye and see you next time.